Okay, I'll re-kick it off. So ACL injuries, what are some common things that can actually increase the rate of that build-up of that cumulative microtrauma and that tissue damage? And what are some of the things that can greatly inhibit our ability to be able to repair from that cumulative microtrauma? Posture is one. If I have poor posture, let's say I have a forward head, generally linked to an increased thoracic kyphosis, that curvature of that thoracic spine, that's going to change the position of the rib cage, which will in turn change the position of the pelvis. What can be quite common is we tend to have a quad dominance, particularly in footballers. So that pelvis starts to tip anteriorly, which generally causes a descending pronation pattern. So medial rotation of the femurs, that those legs start to come inward, okay, or a valgus knee. Once you're in that position, you're increasing the stress that's coming through that MCL, that medial collateral ligament, and that ACL. So over time, that's causing more force to come through those ligaments, which is putting more stress on them and causing more cumulative microtrauma to build up in that area. If I'm healing well though, that may not be an issue for me at the moment. Let's put in diet. I could be eating foods that don't necessarily agree with my body, which is placing stress on the digestive and the visceral system. We know through the Czech Institute and the Czech Totem Pole, if we go off those control centers, my body will prioritize visceral function over muscular function. So what can happen if I'm eating improper foods, that can actually shut down my abdominal wall, my deep stabilizers of that inner unit, and the body will want to stabilize the spine before it stabilizes the slave joints or the lower limb. So what's happening there is we're recruiting things that shouldn't be recruited to be able to stabilize the spine, which is in turn increasing that pressure now coming through those ligaments, for this example, at the knee and the ACL. If I'm not sleeping properly, very, very common, even for footballers, you play under these bright lights of a night, right? You get home, you can't sleep. That's eating into that psychogenic repair and that physical repair, which is adding another stressor and inhibiting our ability to be able to cover from that microtrauma. Our posture can be linked in to that as well. If we have poor length tension relationships at the joint, some muscles will be short, tight, and facilitated. Other muscles on the opposing side of the joint can be long, weak, and inhibited. That's changing the information that's going through our system and our stability at the joints. If we touch on Punjabi's model of joint stability, we have the neural system, we have the active system, and the passive system. The neural system is the nervous system, which sends information to the muscles to be able to fire. Okay, if I'm in poor posture, I'm going to be recruiting muscles in the improper recruitment pattern. So what that does, it then places stress on the passive system, which is our connective tissue, our ligaments, and our tendons, which then send information back to the brain through the central nervous system, which reinforms that whole cycle. So if that system is compromised, we're greatly increasing the amount of pressure that's going through those joints. And once again, increasing that rate of cumulative microtrauma that's coming through to that area. And then when we introduce ourselves to something that's a little bit out of our reach, we overextend, or we come in and we play on that wet surface again, where the ground comes from underneath it. When we approach an area that we would usually be able to deal with, that stress becomes too much for us and the tissue fails. So that's how you can do an ACL.